Jackson was putting out was love across the world. Now, that was a black man with a following bigger than any and all countries combined into one, and Illuminati could not have it. They couldn't have it. And he was killed, and the word came back to me that it was the Illuminati that killed Michael Jackson. Now, why? One of the very last words on Michael Jackson's rehearsal was that when they had the big circle, he goes, I got a very important message to put out. We have to fix this planet. We have to do it now, or else it's not going to happen. And we have to put the message out of love. Well, the Illuminati and the Rothschilds, particularly back in the 1600s, the Rothschild, whose real name is Bauer, by the way, the Rothschilds in the 1600s were known as the most evil man on the planet. They cannot have a black man, or any man for that matter, but Michael Jackson was an angel among us, whether anybody believes that or not, and a master of music and dance, that they could not allow the world combining in peace and harmony, particularly going to be having a show in England promoting peace and harmony. Oh, my God, the Pope couldn't have that. So, henceforth, another person promoting peace and harmony on earth was taken from us by design, because there's no money in peace and harmony. Sad, isn't it?
That goes back in what we brought up on Sunday's show about Spartacus, because he, even though he got put into a gladiator arena, he promoted freedom because of Rome's oppression of slavery. And the historical background showed that he pulled close to 90,000 people in his run through Rome. 90. The historical fact on him is, from what I have been pulling up, those that were caught were crucified, but they never crucified him because, according to history, he supposedly sustained a mortal wound, but they could not prove whether he actually died or not. But Spartacus, even back in 73 BC, was promoting freedom for the enslaved people at that time, and he organized 90,000 people. Now, that's men, women, and children. That is huge for that time period.
Exactly what I was just going to say. 90,000 now is nothing, a drop in the bucket, but 90,000 at that time is phenomenal.
And they did not have telephones, they didn't have computers, and they didn't have wire. It was all spread by word of mouth.
Well, let's go back to the holy, not the holy, that's unholy, but the Roman Catholic Empire. Now, I'm Scottish and German, which is part of my tenacity, but the Scottish people were the only people that the Roman Catholics, the Roman Empire could not conquer. So I'm here to tell you. Now, going back to the Titanic, the English side of my family, my grandparents were going to make reservations on the Titanic to take a cruise, but it was already booked. There was no vacancy. So it's just kind of ironic about all of this.
Yeah, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, that there's so much here in the time history. If we actually understood the historical side of this, we can see where this stuff was preconceived before we was ever conceived.
And before we got deceived.
Yep. But knowledge is where it's at. Because, ladies and gentlemen, walking into this courtroom is not a mechanics. It's a matter of knowledge and matter of wits and matter of understanding, of going head to head and making the opposing side prove their case. And they can't whenever you're walking in here with this kind of information that we have been giving you over the since last Friday. Over the last
I had a gentleman who had a court case on Friday. He's about 19 years old, and I've been grooming him just in the past few weeks. And he went in on his court case on Friday the 13th, on the traffic citation, and he made it very clear I was not driving, I was traveling, I was not in a vehicle, I was in an automobile, and he proceeded to go on and on and on. They crucified him, which is, the norm. And when he walked out, the bailiff came out in the hall running after him and said, "What were you up there doing?" He goes, "Well, why don't you just go to Rod Class's calls and listen for yourself?" And one just kept on going. So it was quite interesting the way he held his ground. But, he was ready to take what they had to dish out, but he held his ground, Rod.
All right. Well, I just found out here yesterday, I got people similar situation here. They finally got an administrative hearing because what they did, instead of going after the police department, they went after the city, and the administrative court allowed them to sue because the city is the head agency over all of the departments underneath of it. So now we got an administrative hearing in Raleigh suing a city because this is the correct corporation. This is the correct agency to sue, and that's the same thing with the county. You got to, instead of going after the sheriff, we got to start going after the county itself, because now we go after the county in these administrative hearings. Now we can bring up the issue on the county judges because they are part of the agency under the county. We were going after the agency.
Yeah, that's correct. And Karen Hood has made it very clear that they're doing the Article 5 constitutional correction. And I'm, excuse me for not having the correct word, the correct word there, but it is Article 5 constitutional assemblies, I believe it is, and holding them all accountable. And she does have the credentials, the wherewithal, and the connections to make this so. And she made it very clear that the HSBC, the Hong Kong Bank, Shanghai Bank, there's an individual corresponding who has made it very clear he's moronic, and I concur. And I've read some of the correspondence from him. And these banks, again, are working for the Pope. So it's very serious. It's very bad. And, Rod, I'm going to have to cut this short.
Okay.
So I think we put out a lot of information today. Is there anything else that you need me to address?
Other than the fact that what you're sitting here saying, because, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back to the Knights Templars, now think about the historical side of this. The Knights Templars is the one that originally created the banking system.
That's correct. The loans. Everywhere they rode to, they had money already in advance, already there. That's exactly right.
And then the Vatican came in and took them out and took over the banking system because they already had it set up.
That's exactly correct.
So it goes right back in what we've been sitting here saying. It goes right through the Vatican.
That's correct.
But it's all historical, ladies and gentlemen. It's all historical facts. All right, I don't want to keep you much longer because I imagine your cell phone's probably going to die out on you, and we've been on here for about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think we probably pretty well have it done. If we have any questions from the listening audience, if they, contact us on our next call, we can address it later.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks, hon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rod.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, this is what we are laying out. Like I said, get into Friday, Sunday's call, and today's call that I put out privately. With this call, ladies and gentlemen,